If you dig the twisted, admire the outlandish, and are enamored by the unusual, you're in the right place. True crime, the supernatural, the unexplained, now you're speaking our language. If you agree, join us as we dive into the darker side. You know, because it's more fun over here. Welcome to Total Conundrum.
Warning, some listeners may find the following content disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Ha 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 ha.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Total Conundrum Podcast. We have a very special treat for you today. We have John from Dairyland Frights with us.
Yay! And I'm here too.
And Jay's here too.
That's the best part.
That is. And last time we recorded with you, Jeremy wasn't here. He was sick. And I was borderline almost ready to reschedule because today I'm the one that's sick. But I'm
You
okay
just
to
got
record.
the sniffles.
I've got the sniffles, so I'm a little stuffy, so excuse my voice. But well, anyway, John, can you tell us about your podcast? What's your vibe? What kind of cases or stories do you like covering?
Yes. So first of all, please check out, even though Jeremy couldn't join us, Tracy and I did one of my favorite podcast episodes and still is one of our highest rated episodes
Nice.
on Doveland, Wisconsin. And I still get emails about it when Tracy and now Jeremy, you'll come too. When are you guys going to drive out there and try to figure out if there is? And I'm like, Tracy and I joke because we're old school. We used to grow up with these Rand McNally maps, excuse me. And basically, for you young people out there, you actually had to look at it and actually figure it out and mark it. You couldn't just grab your phone and be like, take me to Main Street and boop, 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 there you're there, right? You take a left, take a right. You had to literally look at a physical map. And the funny thing is, this episode, go back and listen to it. Tracy was great because she had some really nice stories to it. And one of these we got to figure it out, take a road trip out there and figure out where Doveland, Wisconsin is, because it used to be a town in the middle of Wisconsin, supposedly, allegedly, where there was a giant military installation doing things working with submarines and new technologies to try to communicate with them. At that time, right now we have satellites and everything, so this is totally old school. But yeah, so that was really fun. So I love having my fellow podcasters on, as well as recently I've had a bunch of mediums on, which is crazy how they can tell some stuff. And I did a reading, and you guys might want to have Deborah Roque on from Paranormal Paradigma. She did a reading for me, which was really interesting. I did not eventually put it on the podcast because it was too personal. Because she was finding things I've never told her. That the only way she could have known this is either one, like talk to my wife. And my wife was like, I've never heard of her. And two, somehow got into my medical records. There's no way, or got into family history records, there's no way. And eventually I didn't put it on because it was really personal, because she was talking about my kids and she was talking about my mom. And it was just fascinating. And I highly recommend having her on. Also, I've had a lot of paranormal investigators on who have had like my last ones, they actually had physical contact from a ghost. Like, how would you guys like to be sleeping and all of a sudden somebody like grabbing your foot?
No, thank you.
Or touching your foot, or like poking you, like a little kid, like trying to wake mom and dad up. Oh, it's time to go, kind of attitude.
I mean, right now I'd
Right?
say yes, but then once it happened, I'd be like, hell no.
Right. Right. I'd be like that cartoon thing, where they run through the wall and
Yeah.
the outline of my,
Yeah.
and they're just like, God, it's so annoying. And I'm like, what? You guys, holy crap. I mean,
No.
that's just nuts. So that's really the vibe of my podcast. So what I try to do is bring in another different people about the paranormal, from mediums to paranormal investigators to you name it, to try to not only debunk it a little bit, but also talk about things like Doveland, Wisconsin, where you just don't know, right? You just have no idea what this is happening and what. I can't even, to this day, I still believe in it. And for people who don't, I would love them to listen to my podcast and contact my guests. And you would be a believer very, very quickly. Because I've had people from paranormal investigators who said, I'm just going to do this. This is a bunch of bunk. And been touched, have been voices in their ears, to grab, to everything. And they're like, I believe it now.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of my podcast. Also, I started Sideline. A lot of people are reaching out to me and saying, and maybe he says to you guys too, hey, make it a little more scary. I like to see some more scary stuff. So what I did was I made Nightland Frights. It's just about 15, 20-minute sister podcast that I do. And all I do is just find scary things from around the internet, and I just talk about them or have, have people join me or whoever. And I just do a little bit of really scary stuff, talking about demons, talking about ghosts that hurt people, like the real scary stuff that
Wow.
keep you up at night.
Yeah,
So
I've
really,
seen your
that's kind
posts
of my
on
thing.
that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting. And I try to bring from different people, I try to bring the scariest story about their paranormal encounters in. And like I said, some of them are just like, how you even like function the next day? Like, people seeing mists, shadows, being touched, being demonic activity in their house, living in haunted houses, and just be like, yeah, that kind of sucked. I'll be like, yeah, that sucks, And they're just kind of like, yeah, you just deal with it and just kind of move on. And I'm like, I don't know if I could do that. I'm on YouTube, but I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, we went and stayed at the Roth House in
Yeah.
Illinois, and Jeremy stayed there all by himself during the day and was setting up a bunch of different things. We stayed there for the weekend.
Sure.
We really don't have anything that we could utilize for posting because half of the group was there to investigate and half of the group was there. I'm afraid of ghosts. I don't want to think about it. And all they did was party. So there's a lot of noise pollution from the half of the group partying and the other half trying to investigate.
We do have some video of some orbs though flying around.
Really cool. We had Isaac from Hidden in the Shadows and Megan from Hidden in the Shadows podcast. Isaac has this ability to be able to pull things from haunted locations, demonic things or evil things. And when I was on an Instagram live with him while we were there, and there was an orb that came through. It was really kind of cool.
Yeah.
And we had a couple things that we caught on camera. But again, with the noise pollution, it was really hard. But there was one of the girls was sitting in the living room by herself, and we had the Ring camera in the living room, and she was sitting on the couch, and you can see her just scrolling on her phone. And all of a sudden, you hear these 3 loud knocks, right behind her. And she looks up, and she's like, "Who's in the bathroom?" Because there was a bathroom underneath the stairs. And she didn't get any response. So she goes over and opens up the bathroom door. And then you hear her okay. And walks into the other room.
Yeah.
And then there was another one where Jeremy and I went down into the basement where we recorded a session with the REM pod and EVP recorder and stuff. And I'm asking, the REM pod's going off. And I'm like, okay, thank you for touching it. Can you please stop? And we went back up into the living room, and I was playing the video for these other two girls, and we had the REM pod sitting on the grand piano in the living room. And the REM pod started reacting to my voice in the video and would go off when I would say, "Can you touch it?" And it would stop when I'd say to stop. And then the batteries died in it. And in the video, I'm asking if you can tell us what your name is. And the Ring camera has this creepy, like growly, like it's responding to what's your name.
Wow.
But again, there's too much noise pollution to be able to tell if it was, not something else.
Sure.
But to me, it sounds like that's what it was.
Yeah, I love that.
So yeah, we love doing like Jeremy likes doing it way more than I do. I'm trying to be braver. I spent the whole night like staring at the ceiling like, oh my God, everybody's sleeping and I'm by myself awake. What's going to happen? But so anyway, so let's go into the next question. What got you interested in podcasting, and how do you remember what was the first case or story that really hooked you and made you think, I want to do this too, and I want to, talk about this story and other things?
Yeah, so really what I used to do is talk to a lot of people about it, right? So I'd be constantly talking, and then I'd meet some coworkers, and I'd talk to them, and they'd be like, "Oh, I think my house was haunted. I used to see my grandma, walking down the hall and stuff like that." And then eventually, someone said to me, "You should do a podcast about it because you just, I love the way you talk about it. You have so many interesting stories." And the other thing is I like to have fun with people, even though much to my wife's chagrin. So my wife knows not to take me to parties anymore, like Christmas parties and work parties, because I'm so bored because I don't know anybody. So I talk about serial killer stories and stuff. So I'll go, anyway, and then people will be like, just kind of their eyes will get big. And then and my wife will come over and stop that. You stop doing that. I know what you're trying to get out of that. And I'll be laughing. She'll be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry."
That's great. I love that.
So I used to have fun with me. And then some people would like listen to it and be like, "Yeah, that's really interesting, and stuff." So eventually I just wanted to do that. And then one of the big cases that hooked me was actually here around Wisconsin. It was actually a cryptid. And it's called the Beast of Bray Road.
Yeah,
and
the Dogman.
Beast of Bray Road is basically, it's been around for about, I don't know, older than me, which is old, and to date myself, but it's like a werewolf creature. And there's been numerous sightings. There's been pictures. It's like Bigfoot, but not to that degree, I guess. And, again, numerous stories, numerous people have seen it or claim they've seen it. Not really any pictures. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting that legend has lasted as long as it has. And people know about in Wisconsin. Like if you're driving around northern Wisconsin and I don't know, you're just hanging out and you just go out to dinner and you'd be like, "Hey, anybody know anything about the Beast of Bray Road?" You have like 10 people like, "Oh, I saw it," or, "Oh yeah, this is, and my uncle did this," and blah blah. You're like, wow, that's really, really interesting. And they made movies and documentaries about it.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that really made me interesting is we used to have this mansion, and it's called Summerwind. And it's this beautiful mansion, used to be a beautiful mansion off the lake in northern Wisconsin, but it's built on a Native American burial ground. It's a great topic for you guys if you guys want to cover it, because numerous people have stayed in it and they've seen portals, they've seen ghosts, they've seen demons, they've seen, you name it, they've seen it. And eventually what they had to do was kind of limit people going to it. And then eventually it burned down, allegedly.
It's always allegedly.
By lightning.
Really?
Struck it. And just really just really quick story for that really hooked me on it. So my buddy used to go biking, but biking I mean motorcycle riding all over the United States, and he was a paranormal guy like me, so he decided to go to Summerwind. And in Summerwind, please, by the way, everyone listening, do not go to Summerwind. You will be arrested. It is private property. You're better off just going talking to the local police. Can I just poke around, look around, and make sure they say okay, because they will arrest you. And that's what led me to this story. So my buddy took his bike and he went back to look at it. And this is the weirdest thing to this day, and we both don't get it. So he goes down, he's driving, and then all of a sudden this sheriff comes out of nowhere and says, "You need to leave now." And he's being a real jerk about it. And my buddy's like, okay, fine, I'll leave. And they get out on the road, and then the sheriff pulls my buddy over, and he's like, "What the hell? This isn't right. I got out of there." And the sheriff goes, "Look, really sorry. Didn't mean to be a jerk to you," but he says, "Anybody gets on that ground, something bad happens to them. I didn't want anything bad happen to you, so I'm sorry, but please don't go on." And my friend says, "Okay." Now, as my friend is driving home, he gets into an accident. It's not fatal, but he hits a car, flips over the car, breaks his leg. He's fine. But he was sitting in the hospital when I went and visited him, and he's like, "Man, as soon as they told me something bad would happen, I hit that car like a couple miles down the road. It pulled in front of me, and I couldn't ditch my bike or anything. Hit it broadside and flipped over."
Wow.
So take it as what you want to take it. Coincidence, maybe, I don't know. But those really hooked me, because if you look more and more into that story, which I find fascinating, families who live there went insane. People who worked on it, like workers would quit, like they would be renovating it and they would just be like, "I'm out," and just leave, like construction workers. And if you know construction workers, they're typically not the kind of guys to be scared, or they'll pull pranks, as they'll have some fun. But typically, you're not gonna scare me. I'm okay. So those two cases really hooked me. And really, I just found it really interesting. Then I just got more and more involved, and I was like, wow, just across the United States, and especially in the Midwest, is just a lot of stuff that people don't know. Like how scary it is, and how much tragedy and terrible things that happen, but also, spiritual, paranormal, however you want to put it. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that stuff. Yeah, like the Great Hinckley Fire that took out town after town after town.
Yeah.
Lots of tragic things that have happened in this area.
Oh, absolutely. And like the Peshtigo fire, that killed more people than the Great Chicago Fire. People don't know that because they happened on the same day, the Great Chicago Fire and the Peshtigo Fire. And the Peshtigo Fire, when you look into it, is a million times worse. More people died, more damage. It's horrific. And I don't know why they haven't made a movie out of it. I'm like, this script writes itself, in my opinion.
Get on it, John.
Yeah, they have I know. They have a monument there you can go and look at. So you can look at that monument too, and it describes all how many people died, and it's just, all that stuff is just really interesting.
Yeah, they have that in Hinckley too. It's a mass grave of unidentified people that has a big monument on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, there's a lot of paranormal things where people have seen people, late at night, walking around, spirits, as well as terrible things where they've seen people on fire, like running, like towards the river, like mothers holding their babies who are on fire and running towards the river. Claim they've seen that. Like, wow.
You know what you would see? Yeah. You would see me, a streak of me running the opposite direction if I was seeing that.
I'd be right behind you and Jeremy, Tracy. We would make the Olympic sprint team on that one.
I'm going for the gold. The slowest one is the one that has, it's like, be the fastest one so the bear doesn't get you. I'm going to be the fastest so the ghost doesn't get me.
I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you.
A lot of those stories are just insane. And I
Yeah.
couldn't even imagine. It was a different time. There was no alert systems and stuff like
No,
that in place,
nothing.
and no really good way to get out of town. And
No, nothing. Yeah, the fire department was us three. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? I
pretty
mean, they're
much.
like, okay, guys, grab your bucket. Let's go down and put out the fire. That's the fire department.
Right.
You're
Pass the
like,
bucket.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
crazy.
thank you. As much as
Dude.
I, you know, don't like the way that things have turned as we've gotten older with technology and stuff like that. I miss the
Mm-hmm.
simpleness of the 80s, but yet the
Yes.
80s were still more,
Yeah.
um, what's the word I'm looking for? Advanced
Sure.
than, back in those
Absolutely.
days.
Yeah,
And I like
absolutely.
indoor plumbing, so.
Yeah, so do I. I like indoor plumbing, and I like that I don't have to hunt for my food every day. That if I want a steak, I can just go down to the local butcher or wherever and get a steak rather than kill a deer every day.
Right. Don't want to go out hunting for your food every day.
Yeah, no, I'm cool with that.
Well, so I don't know if we covered this in the beginning, but John is from Wisconsin and we're from Minnesota, so we're like neighbors.
Yeah.
And the story that we did of Ed Gein, it is from Plainfield, Wisconsin. And Plainfield, excuse me.
Yeah, thank you.
I
Very
said
good.
it so many
Plainville.
times last night recording it, you think I'd get it right.
I know, it sticks in your head, right? It's like, that makes more sense, doesn't it?
Yes. So John, when was the first time you ever remember hearing about Ed, and what was your initial reaction? Were you fascinated, horrified, just deeply uncomfortable?
Yeah, so this is a really, in my opinion, it's a really funny story. And this tells you about my mom. I mean, this is where I got some of my love of paranormal and serial killers. My mom was reading a book when I was 9 years old. I totally remember this, on Ed Gein, right in front of me. And she was reading it, and I go, Mom, what's that? And she goes, oh, I don't know, sweetie. This is kind of scary. And I'm like, no, you're 9. You're like, come on, tell me. And then my mom goes, okay. This is about it. And, this is back then where parents could be like, look at this, and, scar you. And you'd be like, okay, whatever. So she told me about this terrible man who had killed these people and did these terrible things. And I was like, well, why would he do that, Mom? And she was like, I don't know, sweetie. Like, nobody knows. No clue. And then when I got older, my mom actually bought the book for me when I was like 16, which I thought was super hilarious. Because
I
she
was
knows I
reading
like
Stephen King horror novels when
right,
I was
yeah.
like 12
Yeah,
years
right.
old.
Yeah,
So
it's a different world. And my mom bought it for me, and I read through it, and I was just like, this is just crazy. I mean, this is I live in a small town in Wisconsin, so if this happened here, I'm not saying now, but back then, the police had no clue. I mean, the
no.
worst thing is some cow got out, you know what I mean? Or old Farmer Joe is drunk and he's running around downtown shooting his shotgun off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the worst. Like,
I think we
okay.
actually referenced the cow whose cow escaped in our
Yeah,
story too.
right, right. So that was the worst. Not some man running around in the moonlight with women's body parts on him. I mean, that's just right.
Oh, it's
Mm.
crazy.
Right. It doesn't make any sense.
And how did he get away with it? How did nobody notice that, different family members or different people were being dug? I mean, I know he usually targeted the fresher graves, but I'm
Correct.
sorry. How do you
Yeah.
not know?
Correct. Everybody, like, for example, not as much anymore, but when my kids were younger and they would be running around amok, doing dumb stuff that kids do, my neighbors would come over and be like, hey, John, just want to let you know, your son was trying to climb this tree, and I was really scared for him. So I went out there and told him, hey, you need to come down. You're going to hurt yourself. So that's my son just climbing a tree in my backyard being whatever. Nobody was like taking their dog for a walk or something and been like, hey, there's Ed. Oh,
Right.
that's weird. What does he have on him? Oh, that's strange.
Why does Ed always hang out in the cemetery?
Yeah, why is Ed hanging out? And then rumors gets right. Why isn't there, especially in small towns, you get rumors. Oh, hey, Tracy and Jeremy, I've seen them hang around cemeteries at night. They're kind of weird, aren't they? I mean, we do that.
That's
We
probably
do that
true.
Yeah, we do that today, right? We do that today.
Yeah.
You're telling me, like you said, that nobody went to the sheriff and went, hey, Sheriff Rogers, I saw Ed again, and he was like digging in a grave. And so here's the weird thing that someone told me when I was telling them, they think the sheriff or the police were in on it. I don't know, but think about that. In a small town, maybe
well, they sure
were.
weren't doing their job. I mean,
Right.
look at the poor
right.
lady that got shot in the bar. And
Correct.
they just assumed she went back home and didn't even investigate it at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, either they're that bad, they're that incompetent, which we've seen incompetent people in our years, where you're like, wow, that person, yikes. How did they get this job? But you would have enough people saying like the same thing over and over. I've seen Ed do this, but maybe this is too soon, but maybe you guys found this out. Did you know that Ed used to babysit kids in Plainfield? And
I did come across that in our research.
Yeah.
We did not cover it in the story, but
so really quickly, not to get us off on a tangent, guys, but
no,
I
you're
do this on
fine.
my
Tangent
podcast.
away.
So a coworker of mine who knew I was in the paranormal, she came up to me one day and she said, "Hey, John, you know Ed Gein, right? You and this is before I did my podcast, and I'm like, yeah, Ed Gein, everybody knows Ed Gein." She goes, "My aunt used to be babysat by Ed Gein, and here's the thing, here's the kicker." The night before he was captured, he was over at the house eating dinner with the family.
Oh my God.
People loved him as a babysitter. People trusted him completely with their kid. Completely.
You
So
would
I'm
think,
like,
as much as
right?
Augusta suppressed him, I suppose he had the mentality of more of a child.
Yes.
But yet he just didn't have those social skills, it seemed like.
Right. But to that degree, that's what fascinates me. Like, how you've met people who kind of have that childlike personality, of maybe you've not gotten out of that, and they're sweet and they're nice, and maybe they have some type of, mental affliction or challenge. Right? Okay, that's not, but you don't see them digging up graves, putting on women's body parts, making lamps out of skin. Lampshades
nipple belts.
nipple belts, which is my favorite. I would love a nipple belt. Not a real one, folks. Let's not get weird. But you know what I'm saying. So how did it go from he is a great babysitter, I love Ed, so childlike, he's so innocent, to what he did, right?
Right. Well, and he flat out admitted to the town, like people would say, I can't remember her name right now, his first kill at the bar. He would flat out say, she's not missing, she's at my house. And people would just laugh and shrug it off. I mean, he flat out told them, she's at my house.
Correct. And two misnomers about Ed Gein that maybe you guys have covered or haven't covered. One, remember, he's not a serial killer. A serial killer is defined who kills 3 or more people. Ed only killed 2, but people say 3.
Yes, because of his brother.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
And that brings me to another thing
there you go.
that I encountered in my research. All of the cold cases around Plainfield and nearby. You have let's see, Georgia Reckler in 1947 was an 8-year-old girl who disappeared near her home in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin.
Yep.
She was never found. You have
Mhm.
Evelyn Hartley in 1953, a 15-year-old babysitter abducted from La Crosse, Wisconsin. That
Mhm.
case also remains unsolved.
Mhm.
Victor Travis and Ray Burgess, 1952, 2 men vanished after visiting a bar in Plainfield. And James Walsh, 1954, 32-year-old farmer from Plainfield who went missing under unexplained circumstances.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. That I don't know about because it seemed like Ed liked to target women because of
Yes.
his mother. You
Right.
know,
I thought it was interesting. The ones that got me were the 2 guys at the bar.
correct. I've heard this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think, but I don't know. Maybe they were making fun of Ed or something. He got drunk, made fun of him.
Maybe they're making fun of Mama.
Yeah,
That
made
could
fun
be
of his.
too.
He's a mama's boy,
Yeah.
right? Something, right? Guys were right on there. And killed him, right?
Yeah.
But this is where I don't particularly buy into it. Is you think someone, or eventually, because Ed Gein was pretty much after a while like, yeah, I killed everybody, and yeah, I did this, and yeah, I did that. You know what I mean? He wasn't like some serial killers where like, I didn't do anything, you can't prove it, and you can't tie me to this or anything. He was pretty forthright in what he was saying, and they pretty much, but again, I don't know. You know, it's interesting. And it's weird that nobody found the bodies. I mean, Plainfield is not that big, and I'm sure somebody would have, I don't know, would have said like, "Why don't you check here, here, here?"
Right.
I don't know. That's
it's crazy.
It is.
It is crazy, and you can speculate for days on all sorts of things. But
absolutely,
I thought it was interesting coming across that there had been a lot of cold cases near that area.
Yes.
So do you think if Ed had been raised in a normal household, like a loving home with a golden retriever, Saturday morning breakfast, do you think we would know his name today?
I don't think so because his mother was so. If you read the stories, like Ed tried to be normal. Like he'd bring a girl home, and be like, "This is Mary," or Tracy. And
No, it's not Tracy.
or Jerry. Oh, wait a minute.
Nope, not him either.
And she would be like, "Get that whore out of here. She's the whore. Get that whore out of here." And that's all he learned was, even though he tried to be normal and he tried to do these things, she'd be like, get him out. I'm your basically only love, which is really terrible. And the father was just this wimp who never did anything. If the research, that I found out, man, you guys have come across, he was just this henpecked husband. Yes, dear. Okay, dear. Yeah, dear. And she'd just boss him around and push him around and be like, okay. So you're right. Maybe if the dad said, hey, stop being a bitch. Excuse my language. I don't know if we can swear.
You can swear.
Okay, stop being a bitch. What was her name again? I always forget her mom's name.
Augusta.
Yeah. Stop being a bitch. Augusta, hey, leave the kid alone. Let him get laid. Let him have some fun, stuff like that. Yeah, who knows? Maybe he does. But if once you guys cover maybe some other stories, like, and again, this is how my twisted brain works. Guys like the blind torture BTK killer, okay, Dennis Rader, he was a normal guy.
Right.
They found nothing in his past. Like his mom was a little bit like, come on, you can do it, and pushed him a little bit. And his dad was like, but come on. Then my son would be serial killer. Oh, wait a minute. I always with my kids be like, go out for sports and stop sitting in your room playing video games all day. Come on, let's go fishing and let's go, whatever. Nothing. Zero. And there's some other serial killers like that who said, no, my mom was great. My parents were great. I loved them both very dearly. Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah.
Nothing. And you're like, wait a minute.
Well, that's where you can
it's
get
very
into the
rare. Yeah,
right.
right?
You can get
Yeah.
into the whole nature versus nurture
Correct.
type thing.
Yeah, so again, I don't. I think there was something wrong with him that wasn't diagnosed correctly, which at that time they thought everything was the devil inside you, and like
Well, when you're
some,
eating cereal out of
get
human
tougher
skulls,
and
right?
yeah.
When you're eating cereal out of human skulls and everything else that he did, yeah, there's definitely a few
Right.
screws loose in that.
See, I'm more fascinated by that. Like, what makes someone just one day go, you know what? I'm going to make a nipple belt today.
All his dishes were dirty, so he had to use the skull.
Yeah.
He had no other option.
Don't you think it would be easier to wash a bowl than go out and dig up a skull and make a bowl?
I don't know. He probably just had the skull laying around. So
yeah, he just ran later around and went, yep, okay. Yeah, he used to. What was funny when they went in, I shouldn't say it's too funny, but I found this a little humorous. When they went into his, found all these horrific things into his house, they found that he was eating pork and beans all the time and just throwing the cans on the floor. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
maybe you've caught your kids doing that, or maybe Jeremy, maybe you've done this once around like I have, where I'll eat something, you're kind of tired, and you just throw it in the sink, and you're like, whatever, and then, whoever, the wife or whoever comes over to you and be like, can you just throw it in the trash? It's right there. He didn't have that either, right? So when they found that, they just found just cans and cans of porks and beans just all over the floor. Just
Wow.
just sitting there, like, okay. It's weird.
Well, and her bedroom was preserved meticulously.
Yeah, so right?
Everything else was like hoarder, like junkyard, but her bedroom was preserved meticulously.
Yeah. So again, I think that's why we're fascinated by it, right?
Right.
Everyone is still fascinated to this day because you're like, he's drinking, out of a skull, eating cereal out of a skull. He's making nipple belts and lampshades out of skin. And then his mom's room is this. I think he had it boarded up too. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he had it boarded up, and when they came into his house, I think they had to. Either it was locked or his mom's room was boarded up, and they had
I can't remember.
I whatever, but right to your point. When they opened it, it was like nothing's changed. I mean, it was dusty and full of cobwebs or whatever, but all in all, that's the way Mom left it. So.
Yeah, it's a crazy, crazy story. It's telling it was just mind-boggling.
It is.
I mean, I knew a lot of the details because hearing it over and over time, but when you get into researching it and stuff like that, and you come across stuff, you're like, oh my.
Yeah, and you got to remember, this is what, 1953, 2? I don't know, whatever. It's the 50s.
53 was the first murder.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's in the 50s. These cops didn't. Again, like I said, they're chasing cows. They're old man. Joe, whatever, shooting the shotgun after having too much. And you walk into that. I would love if there's a way we could all group together and find some of the cops and their relation now, obviously, or maybe they're still alive, who went in there. Could you imagine opening that door?
No.
Right? Thinking, he's probably got a bunch of guns and knives and whatever. And just, what?
Well, we talked about that in our story. They thought they were going there looking for a missing person.
Correct.
And they find her hanging, gutted like a deer and beheaded. And then Jeremy's favorite part is they find her head in a bag with nails in her ears. He did not like that part at all.
I still say that's the worst part.
That's the worst part. Really quickly, Tracy, this one's for you because you gave me bagel bites with Zach Baggins. So You guys can look this story up if you haven't already. I featured it on my Instagram. So the cauldron where Ed Gein boiled the skulls and the bones to get the flesh off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how this happened, and I have to look back at it. But anyway, a woman, I believe, is in South Dakota or Minnesota or somewhere. She had used it for a plant. What do you call it? You know, we just put your plant in and everything.
A planter.
You know, planter. Oh, thank you.
Yep.
I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Anyway, she used it for a planter. She used it for years, right? She passes on. And anyway, the guy, her son's going through the stuff. He's going through the stuff, and he's looking at this cauldron. And he's like, "Huh, what's so weird about this planter, like cauldron thing?" And so he goes, "Oh, whatever." And he just puts it on eBay just to sell it, you know, or whatever. And it turns out that was like I said, the cauldron that Ed Gein used to boil his bones. And Bagel Bites, Zach
put it in his museum, right?
Put it in his museum.
Yeah.
He bought it for a little over $2,000 or $3,000 at an auction. It is there in Las Vegas. If you ever get a chance to go to there, it is in there. And for years,
just was a planter in our front yard.
Just a planter, just mom's planter. And how many times people walked past that? And how many times people touched it? How many times she took a plant out, put a plant in? She was literally touching, you know, it wasn't like he's, you know, to this day. I'm like, how did that happen?
No, when we first bought this place, I was out digging some weeds or something out of this box that's built around this tree, and I literally thought I found a finger. It was a root of some kind, but I stopped. I was like, shit, is that actually a finger? No, you don't. That should have been burnt down with the house. No cauldrons.
Yeah, right?
No.
Yeah.
That man.
So, like, things like that. And there's plenty of history like that where people who have been like, you know, they've had a serial killer jacket or whatever, and they've just, I don't know, you know, and they're like, would they find it? So would I, right? I'd freak out.
No.
And, you know, the son had no clue until people were like, that's belonged to Ed Gein. And they went, you know, and talked to some people who knew him and knew this was part of the manifest when the cops went in there. So I'm like, how did that get to her? I don't know. But it's fascinating.
What did it have, like his name on it or something?
I believe it had something. Something. There was something in there that when they put on, you know, when the cops come in and they start taking things for evidence.
Yeah.
There was something on the cops list that said, like, you know,
it was marked with some kind of.
It was marked something.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's understandable name. I'll have to research that again, but.
I want to say it was like a serial number or something.
It was something like that. Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah.
Oh.
Wouldn't that be funny if it was Gein and people went, "Who's this Gein person?" Whatever.
Right. The Gein person.
Because some people don't know about this because they don't want to know, right? Why would you, unless you're people like us who like this stuff and interested in this stuff, you'd be like, yeah, okay.
Well, until we read the story, I wouldn't have known. I mean, I could have been the owner of that thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, in other words, check your pots and pans after this.
Well, and it was funny when we kind of decided to do, what do you call them, Jeremy? The nautical, the ones that we're covering in order right now.
Canonical 5 or something, or 7.
Something like that. The main big. The
superstar serial killers.
Right. Yeah. So we're kind of going down the list, doing some of those right now. Yeah. And when we said Ed Gein's name, I was actually thinking of, what the heck is his name? The one that was also obsessed with his mom, but he actually killed his mom. And
Ed Kemper?
yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking Ed Kemper. So when I started going into researching this, and I'm like, wait, whoa, this isn't the one I was thinking of.
You're like,
So
hey.
I had him confused. So I went down a totally different avenue than I thought I was going down.
Yeah, right.
So
I don't know who he is either.
You look him up. He's
an interesting.
man.
He's kind of like one of those big. I believe it. If I remember correctly, he had a really low IQ.
Correct.
And he was a big mama's boy, but he ended up getting so upset at his mother that he killed her, and I believe he had sex with her skull multiple times. And he was just picking up random people, and then he killed one of his mom's friends, some college students. Yes. But he was a necrophiliac, where he was actually, where Ed was just, from what we understand, Ed Gein, he was just taking the body parts and not having sex with them. Kemper was actually having sex with them and stuff.
And Kemper was a big guy. He was, I think he was like 6'4", 6'5", like 280. I mean,
and he worked at the police department too.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a huge guy. And he would literally, if you walked in the room, would scare the crap out of you.
Right.
Like, he was just one of those guys, like, there's something off about this guy.
Right.
Like, you could immediately tell.
Yeah. Very, very interesting story, which I'm sure at some point in our podcast career, Jay, lucky you, we'll cover it.
Yay! I'm so excited.
Let the nightmares begin.
I like the ghost stories better.
The ghost ones are a lot more fun.
Yes.
Let's see. We kind of covered a lot of the questions. Let me see what else we have here. So Ed Gein inspired a lot of some of the massive horror icons like Norman Bates, Leatherface, Buffalo Bill. If you had to pick the one that best captures his story, I'll ask both of you. John, which one do you think best captures it?
Oh, Psycho, most definitely.
Psycho, Norman Bates?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Just because in there they deal with the fact that, his mother, and then, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Psycho, I don't know where have you been. Okay. And if you haven't, I'm seriously, go and watch it. It still holds up to this day. It's maybe not as frightening as horror movies today, but it still gives the chills. And what I loved about that movie is, it was just to the point where it kind of the same thing, everybody, hey, he's talking about his mother and, oh, your mother, this and that. And then, at the end, you're like, oh my God, you get blown away that he's got his mother in the basement.
Right.
Again, spoiler alert.
Well, and if you don't want to watch the old school Psycho, they have, what is that one show that they came out with? Is it Bates Motel?
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, more of a newer kind of twist on Psycho.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How about you, Jay? Which one do you think?
I would have to go with the, what did I call it yesterday? Chainsaw Massacre?
Chainsaw, yeah, when we were recording. The Leatherface of it all.
I'm definitely going with that one, yeah.
And I think it's funny because I think more of the Buffalo Bill. It puts the lotion on the skin.
Yeah, right.
So it's funny. All three of us have a little bit of a different perspective on. I mean, but all three of them obviously are definitely after him. And what's really funny about Leatherface, the Chainsaw Massacre and stuff, Jeremy and I went to Crypticon in Minneapolis this summer.
Nice.
Was it? Yeah, this last summer. And we met one of the guys that played Leatherface in, was it Chainsaw 2? If I remember correctly.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And he was talking about all the different things, with filming that. And they didn't have those like light chainsaws and stuff back then. We went to like a Q&A panel with him and some other cast members.
Right.
And they were talking about filming that scene on the bridge and how that bridge seemed so long, but it was actually super short. And they had to keep starting over, they would stop and go back and then keep filming and all the different things that they had to do while they were filming it. And I was just like, it was just, even back then, the movie magic of it all.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of cool.
Speaking of movies, well, now there's gonna be a limited series about Ed Gein
Oh, really?
coming out. I don't know if they've pushed it through, but either it's 2025 or 2026. And the lead actor on Sons of Anarchy, if you've seen the TV show at all, will be playing him. And people in Wisconsin lost their minds because he's a good-looking guy. You know what I mean? He's a really
Right.
good-looking guy. So they're like, what are they gonna do to him? I mean, it's movie magic, so they're just gonna have to pile the makeup on him and you know what I mean? Put the prosthesis on him because he's a good-looking dude. And Ed
Right.
Gein, I'm sorry, Ed.
He was not.
Sorry,
I'm not
Ed.
yeah, you're not a good-looking dude.
No, definitely
But yeah,
not.
it's a limited series coming out, which again to this day it is 25. This happened, over how many years ago?
70 years ago.
Yeah. And they're still making movies and limited series and books and comic books and like it's just crazy.
It
You think about it.
is.
You think it would have died on the vine per se, but nope. They keep coming out with it more and more and more.
So, kind of going, we talked about this a little bit before recording, but if you could visit the site of Ed Gein's farm, which is now just an empty field, would you?
Absolutely. I've tried. I'll have to see this summer. I'm trying to get everyone, and if I can get Tracy and Jeremy to join,
Oh, we'll
whether I
join.
can go
We'll be
or
there.
other people can go. Just do a simple paranormal investigation of it. I want to make sure we line everything up so nobody gets in trouble. So I don't want to see anybody arrested or anything over this. But I don't think it's private property, but whatever. And I just love to study it because people who have said, and this is on Reddit, so believe it or not, I guess it's totally up to you. But people who have said they've been in the area, women have said they've had their hair pulled, that women have said they've gotten sick, like, nauseous. Other women have said they've felt groped. Other women have said they have felt like a hand on their shoulder. Men said they have been pushed, have been like physically attacked. But everyone that says they go on it, just they it's creepy. They just say because it's nothing. You go and look in Google Maps,
Right.
and you'll be like, it doesn't
There's
look creepy
nothing
to
there.
me. But as soon as you get there, people say like, wow, this is not good. There's
Well,
something off about
if
this
I
place.
suddenly like disappear in the background, check the vehicle first before you call the cops on a missing
Yeah,
person.
because she'll be sitting in there with the doors locked.
Come on, Tracy, come out. No, can't make me.
Let me in. No,
Let me
There's a
in.
poof of
I
smoke
can't
as
open
I
the
drive
door.
off into the sunset.
Hey, he's the one he drove us here.
Hey, can one of you guys give me a ride home?
I like to try to be brave, but I am a scaredy cat.
You'd be fine.
You don't know what you would, obviously we wouldn't know what we would get there.
Right.
I would like to run some EVPs. I'd like to run, some people have a lot of my paranormal investigators I talk to have like state-of-the-art equipment, like trip wires and all this stuff they put out there. And I'd be like, it'd be interesting to see what would happen.
Definitely. If you had the choice of spending the night at the old Gein farm, when it was still standing, or in an abandoned asylum, which one would you choose?
Boy, that's a tough one. Probably the farm, because
The farm.
asylums, there's just so much stuff going on there. I would have to. They're still both scary, but at least I kind of know what would happen at the farm, but the asylum, I would not. Who knows?
Yeah. How about you, Jay?
I would probably do the asylum.
You'd do the asylum?
Yeah.
For more activity?
Yeah.
Or
just bigger space to check out.
yeah.
Sure. Oh,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
think it'd be a little bit scarier being in one of those.
Oh, absolutely.
I choose option C. I'll stay
Stay
in the car
home.
while you guys are.
Yeah.
she'll
You probably
Tracy will
wouldn't
be
even stay home.
home or in the car,
Yeah.
just playing Candy
I'll
Crush.
be Bagel Bite's nerve center. I'll watch all the cameras and see what's happening to all you guys.
Look
right.
out!
Yeah. You're on your own, sucker.
Or maybe just I'll throw a random like air horn in certain areas when you guys walk by. I'll just be like,
I mean,
Just
I
so I
guess
can
with
get
the
the pickup.
asylum too, you could have a big group, so you wouldn't have to be scared.
Definitely.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
definitely would.
I would
make more
definitely.
sense.
There's safety in numbers.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So, John, with you being from Wisconsin, do you have any fun Ed Gein behind the scenes stories that you can share with us?
Yes, I do, Tracy.
Yay.
So one of the things, a family friend of ours was the head nurse at the Mendota Mental Health Institution, who oversaw Ed Gein. She was the head nurse that would go in there and check on him. And here's the story about it: this is wow. I don't know how they could do this, but the joke was, and this was a joke, a prank that the other nurses played on each other. So a lot of the nurses were younger and they never heard of Ed Gein, right? Never
Mhm.
heard of him. Didn't know who he was. So the joke was to take, and this is when I'll call her Mary, when she wasn't around, she's at lunch or something, they would say, hey, go in and see Ed, he's a nice old guy, go and make sure he's okay, that he's warm and everything else. Oh, sure, they'll go in there, and they come back out. And then they would tell them, that's Ed Gein, the butcher of Plainfield. And they would just be like, and then people would either quit on the spot or just like gets physically sick. And that was the joke, to do that. Well, most of the time people would, they'd leave after 5 minutes and stuff, these nurses, whatever. But one time my Mary was gone, and she would, by the way, Mary would chastise people. She'd be like, stop doing that. I'm losing nurses. This isn't funny anymore, So she would normally,
people to work.
yes, we need people to work. So normally she would tell people, okay, this is Ed, I take care of him. Now, a little bit about Ed. So my Mary didn't take any shit from anybody. So when she would go in there, if Ed liked you, okay, he would have this really evil grin on his face, and he'd just smile at you. Remember, these are women taking care of him, okay? Why women? I don't know. If he didn't like you, he would just stare at you with his cold, dark eyes and just stare at you, just glare at you. So Mary didn't take any shit from everybody. So she would come in with his medication, and Ed didn't like her because Mary, he'd be like, "You dirty whore," and he would say things to her like that, and she'd be like, "Ed, shut your mouth, take your pills, and you better calm down, or I'm going to come in here and." So she wouldn't take it, and he'd just glare at her. So one day, Mary was gone on a business trip, and she totally forgot. She told us this story, by the way. Totally forgot to tell the new nurse about this, like she would normally. So the nurses got together, and they told the new nurse, go in there. And she goes in there, right? 5 minutes later, nothing. 10 minutes later, nothing. 15 minutes later, nothing. Half an hour later, the new nurse comes out, right? And she's all happy, and she's talking. Oh, he's such a nice old man. It reminds me of my grandpa. Okay. She has no idea. So Mary comes in, and she's like, hey, I'm Shelly. Hey, Shelly, how's your first day? How's everything going? Oh, great. Hey, I was talking to Ed for quite a while. He is so nice. Reminds me of my grandpa. And Mary just just glares at the other nurses, and she's like, oh, sweetie, come here. And she tells, Shelly, Ed is butcher of Plainfield, used to walk around, with women's vaginas and breasts and dig up all this stuff and all that, Shelly turns immediately white. Like, she has to sit her down. They're really worried of her. She starts to hyperventilate, starts to totally freak out. And, they're trying to help her and everything. And eventually, she just quits on the spot.
Oh,
And
yeah.
just quits, she couldn't, So Mary goes in there and she's saying, Ed, I lost another nurse, thanks a lot, you gotta stop that. And he starts cackling, like an evil cackle at her and stuff like that. And she's like, ooh, so eventually what they had to do is move Ed. I believe they moved him to Sheboygan, to another place, because, like I said, all the nurses would quit. Everyone couldn't stand him. He was just evil personified. That's what Mary would tell me. He was just evil. Like, you'd walk in there and it was like a dark cloud, and you felt like almost like a wet blanket on you, his personality.
Oof.
And they could never keep the nurses. She was the only one that could handle him. And you got to remember, he was 70 something at this time, so he's not like gonna be
Right.
like beating the crap out of people or doing,
Right.
but you don't know. And he, Mary helped him too. She would bathe him, with a sponge bath. She would, and people are like,
That woman was a saint.
I know. And we would just, I remember telling her, I said, Mary, how'd you do that? And she goes, every patient is a patient to me. I don't care whether they did this or did that. I don't care. I'm doing my job. I got to do my job. And that's the way she looked at it. It was her
Right.
job to do this. And there are people out there, they don't care if you murdered 20 people. Like, okay, you're still a person. I'm still going to do my job and do what I have to do to keep you alive. Because she could have any time, I said to her, didn't one time you just feel like giving him, overdosing him or something? And she looked at me, she goes, no. I was like, I want to. I went my first day, I'd have been like, take the pills.
Okay, note to any psychology hospital. What is the word I'm looking for?
Like hospitals or something. I don't know.
Yeah, psych hospitals. Why wouldn't that come out of my mouth? My gosh. Do not let John apply.
Hey.
Well, I have kind of a related story to the girl who was in there just talking to the guy,
Yeah.
not realizing what he was capable of or who he was.
Yeah.
When I was a teenager in high school, my mom had married this guy, and I knew that that he had a brother that I had never met. And one day around Christmas time, he came home for Christmas. And I was down in the basement with him by myself, and we were watching TV and just chatting, getting to know him. Didn't, think anything of it. It's just a family member that hadn't made it home for Christmas in a few years. And the next day, I was down in the basement again by myself, and I was watching TV, and the news came on, and his face was on the 5 o'clock news. He had during this time, my mom was very, very sick. My mom passed away when she was young from leukemia. And so this would have been, I believe, I can't remember if this was right before or right after she passed. But anyway, he, come to find out, he had stolen or had taken one of our vehicles and drove to Mora, Minnesota, which is where I grew up. And we were living in Northfield, Minnesota at the time. He had taken one of the vehicles, drove to Mora, Minnesota, stopped at a gas station to get gas, and kidnapped a woman and her 2 daughters, took them to Palisade, Minnesota. He shot the mom in the eye with a pellet gun. So she did lose her eye, but she didn't die from the injury because it was a pellet gun and not like a, handgun. And I found out he wasn't just that he hadn't been coming home for Christmas. He had been in prison since he was 17 years old for kidnapping, raping, molesting, all these nasty nasty, nasty things. And this family let this man into the home that had 3 young children and let me sit in the basement and talk to him by myself.
Oh,
The day he got out of prison, and the day after he gets out of prison, he goes and does the same thing again. I'm like, wow. So
yeah.
I can relate to her a little, not, always thinking the best of people and just thinking it was a family member that I hadn't met yet. And yeah, crazy.
Yeah, you just don't know people like you think you do, There's been plenty of stories like that, right?
Yeah. It's the insanity of it all.
Yeah. I
But
mean, it's you think your next door neighbor is this really nice person, and who knows? You just don't know.
Right. All right. So was there any other little tidbits that you had about Ed Gein?
Other than one of the things too, like I said, I talked about he was a babysitter, so he babysat the kids
Yeah.
and everything like that. And like I said about his cauldron, and one of the other fun things is, so his gravestone is no longer, if you go to Plainfield and look for his gravestone, it is no longer there. And you're saying, well, of course it's no longer there. Why would you do that? The reason it isn't there is because people would go in and chip off part of his gravestone, try to sell it on eBay.
Yeah.
And so now it's in what they claim is in the basement of the Plainfield Police Department, but people have said they have had to move it because there's been people who have come into there and have tried to like break in and I don't know, steal it or something. But people
that's
who
smart.
yeah, right.
Let's break into the
break into a
police
police
department and steal his headstone.
Yeah, I don't, whatever. But I'm just like, but the other thing people have said too, who have bought the supposed rock or whatever you want to say from the gravestone, tombstone, whatever you want to say, they have reported, weird things happening in their homes, seeing shadow people, feeling dread and stuff, and have returned it. Again, believe what you want to believe.
Kind of like the Bell Witch.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. I mean, that's one of the things too. I just find interesting. I find it interesting the cops did nothing. I thought that's super weird, and I find the cold case is weird. And also back in just shortly after they went through the house and everything like that, a gentleman bought the house and was going to turn into, of all things, a museum.
What?
And was going to turn all this. I don't know what the hell he's going to do, to be honest with you. But then it allegedly, supposedly, whatever a lead, burned down. The house completely burned down before he could take ownership of it. Why you would do that, I have no idea.
I guess the Villisca axe murder.
Sure.
That house is there. You've got, oh my gosh, what's the other one? The 40 Wax.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of her name?
We're all drawing bikes here. I was just listening to this.
Do you know it, Jay?
No,
I want to. Why am I
shoot.
Gosh.
Everybody is screaming at us right
at
now.
You idiots! It's tell us. We want to know.
Oh my God! Why?
I'm drawing a blank. Someone's got to look it up. It'll drive me crazy. Why am I
40 Wax?
It's gonna drive me crazy.
40 rhymes for what?
Well, I want to see it.
It's a nursery rhyme that Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden.
Oh
my
killed
God.
her father with 40 wax.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna try to remember the nursery rhyme after can't even think of her name.
Yeah, and there's plenty of mansions out there haunted that are still out there where a bunch of crimes took place and stuff. So
right.
Yeah.
So I guess I can understand. Everybody's out to make a buck, but I'm not buying any murder house. That's for damn sure.
Right. Exactly.
Sorry, babe.
What if it's nice and cheap though?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that was something funny. We just um, started researching the Winchester Mansion, which are going to be releasing soon. And that mansion sold at auction for $137,000.
Yeah.
It's worthless. I mean, well, not really, because you can make millions off of opening it up, but 137,000.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I have not gone to it, but on business trips, I've driven past it. It's really weird because it's like in downtown. It's like
right
all
across the street from a mall.
Yeah, it's right across from a mall. It's got all these businesses around it. Like, so people are going to work. They'll see it every day. It's like, oh, here it is, right there. Kind of.
Yeah, Jeremy's actually been there. It's my dream to go there.
Oh,
I've wanted to go there since I was in high school, and I did a research project on it.
Yeah, awesome.
It's very cool. Well, let's.
I'd buy it.
What's that? You would buy it?
I'd buy it. Yeah.
I think it would be cool. I don't know. I definitely don't know if I'd live in it, but
I'd live in it.
You would live in it?
Yeah.
He's brave.
Well,
I'd probably change the stairs though, because takes an hour to get up the stairs.
Yeah.
Which is like 8 feet.
Yikes.
What was your favorite part of the house?
The outside, actually. The palm trees.
Outside? Well, there's a picture of you standing outside of that house too, isn't there? I thought I remembered seeing that. You were so young.
Yeah.
Very young.
It was fun.
Let's do a wrap up on this episode for Ed Gein. We are going to have John also give us some insider information on another episode that we're working on. And that's going to be a lot of fun to do that one too. So John, let us know where everybody can find you and listen.
Yeah. So I am on all the social media sites, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Also, you can listen to me, on all your favorite platforms, Spotify, Apple, all the big ones. I'm there, easy to find. Also, if you want to be a guest on my show, please feel free to reach out. Or if you have a spooky story, occasionally I get some people sending me spooky stories, and I love to hear them. If you lived in a haunted house, or you've had maybe a demon try to eat you or something, I love that stuff. I know it's traumatic, but tell me about it. I can listen to it.
The world wants to know.
The world wants to know. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us for this little fun fact and Q&A on Ed Gein. It's been so much fun.
Yes.
And we look forward to having you for the Dahmer one as well.
Great.
Yay.
Love it. I can tell you scary stories, and now we're not going to sleep at night. Great.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Keep on creeping on. We love you.
Catch you later, Conundrum Crew. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with us here at Total Conundrum. Please make sure to check out our website and blog at totalconundrum.com for news, upcoming events, merch, bloopers, and additional hysteria. You never know what will pop up, so be sure to follow along. If you want to show your support for Total Conundrum and gain access to all of our bonus content, please visit our Patreon page. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The links are available in our show notes. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, or stories to share, please email us at contact@totalconundrum.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate the love. Keep on creeping on, mother cluckers.